What's up, everybody? Good evening, fellow East Coasters. Good afternoon, JP and his fellow West Coasters.
I'll say West Coast is the best coast. No.
You know, um, yeah, and they tell us it's always fun for us to see. Just throw this in the chat. Where are you in the country or the world? We get pretty we're pretty geographically diverse generally. But tell us where you're at and graduating class of your student, if you would. I think predominantly I know we're 26 is here, but. Um, yeah, and there we are. JP is always very well represented geographically, and the
Yeah. Well,
26s, couple young go-getters there, 27s and earlier. Okay, beautiful. Right on time here. You guys are right where you should be. Yeah, and we get a lot to cover tonight because obviously the goal is that you leave here an hour from now and you're like, okay, at least I know where kind of we should be, right? Me as a parent or parents and my student, right? Or student. So yeah, Seoul, South Korea, there you go. So even if you might hear some stuff tonight and be like, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm super behind," and like maybe that is the case, but that's okay. It's like, all right, what's my, what's next, right? What can I control? What should I be doing right now? Appreciate all the participation, by the way. Keep it coming. I think we have our best presentations when you guys are engaged as an audience. JP and myself, we've been doing this collectively almost like approaching 50 years between the two of us, I think. JP, and you got me by a few years, but you're going to be hard pressed to stump us with any questions. So for your questions, please put them in the Q&A. Sometimes I'll say, "Hey, put this and that in the chat," just like I'm doing right now. But for your questions, put them in the Q&A because whichever one of us is not speaking, we're going to be focused on the Q&A, answering as many questions as we possibly can. You can be anonymous, so you can ask a question that's really personal. Whatever's keeping you up at night, throw it at us, and we're going to do our best to help you. So I'll do brief introductions, some housekeeping stuff outside of the questions belong in the Q&A. I'll remind you of that more than once, I promise. And then we want to get into it because again, we got a lot of important stuff to cover here. My name is Matt Carpenter. I'm a founder of College Aid Pro. Like I said, I've been doing this myself 20 years, my entire career. The only thing I know professionally is just this college and specifically financial aid, scholarship, affordability. How the hell are we going to pay for this? Challenge, right? That is what I've been doing, for the last 20 years, just guiding families through this process. Guess what? If you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, if you're feeling a little bit anxious, good. I'd be worried about you if you
I was
weren't.
gonna say I'd be worried if you didn't.
Exactly. I mean, it's something we say every day. It's your kids and it's your money. Like, no kidding. It's about as, two of the most provocative things we can focus on. So our job is to help just bring the temperature down a little bit, right? Just number one, open up this black box. What's real? What's not? We like to consider ourselves a source of truth. What can control, and what should you be doing right now? That's our job, and we're going to talk about that part of it. JP is going to kick us off on the admissions front. Obviously, focused on the Common App that starts or that came out maybe even right now, or open to the public tomorrow. And then I'm going to focus more on that affordability piece before we kind of leave you for the evening. So JP, I'll let him introduce himself, of course, but from my perspective, he's somebody that I personally kind of recruited in the space because I thought he was really unique for a few reasons. Number one, he's been on every side of the desk, right? So he was the director of financial aid at University of Southern California at USC. He was in admissions there. He had a ton of roles there for the long period of time he was there. Then in the private sector, and it's very rare that professionals in our space have a lot of experience and expertise in both the financial piece and the admissions piece. So that's why we call JP a little bit of a unicorn here. So we're lucky to have him. And JP, yeah, if you want to, if you forget, did I forget any compliments for you, buddy?
Say I don't know if I have anything else to say. Um, yeah, let's just. I'll get to it. Maybe I'll think of something later. But let me share the screen real quick and like get this pulled up and make sure. Can you see the screen fine there, Matt?
We got you.
All right. Cool. So, as far as Matt's already done quite a bit about who we are. I always joke instead of the unicorn, I like to say the Santa Claus of college planning. A little bit of the beard and also I'm starting to get fat like Santa. But I'll just say, I'm going to focus more on the admissions, not financial aid tonight. And so I'll just say, like, for my class of 2025 students that are just about to go off to college here in the next couple of weeks, like I got students who started at, or who will be starting at, NYU, Northeastern, work your way down to Chapel Hill, Duke, over to University of Michigan, and then over by me at USC, UCLA, Berkeley, pretty much all over the country. And I'm going to say, I mentioned those schools first because frankly, that seems to be what gets people's attention. But honestly, I'm just as excited for the kids who of mine who are starting at Rutgers and ASU and CSU and Cal State schools. To me, all that matters is that my kids or your kids get into the schools that are the right fit for them. Right. So I know it's common in my industry for the advisors to be bragging about, like, got kids into these big name schools. And first of all, like, always like, look, I didn't get my kids into any schools. They did the work. I coached them. I told them what to do. I helped them improve their strategies, whatever. But I don't chase the prestige so much. I really to say find the schools that are right for you. Right. So that's a big deal for me. Something I'm more concerned about. Before we get into the Common App in of itself, let's just talk a little bit. I had to do a little bit of research, and I want to kind of share some of the latest admissions trends. And I'll be curious, Matt, to get your thoughts or impressions on some of this data, if you will. So last year, there was about a 6% rise in the number of students applying via the Common App. That might not seem like a lot, but when you're talking about 8.5 million coming through, like 6% is noticeable. In fact, it was enough to change which schools are considered safeties versus targets versus reaches. And frankly, a lot of students overestimated their chances and then fell short because there was a lot of increased competition. NYU, their applications have increased more than 50% over the past 5 years. It places them in the 5th place as the most applied to school in the country. The top 4 above NYU would be UC Irvine, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, and top it off with UCLA, which that school alone received over 146,000 applications this last year. Selective majors like business, computer science, some of the engineerings have far lower admit rates than the colleges themselves. So many families might incorrectly assume that, getting into a top major at a public university they tend to think it's easy. And I'm going to say it could be harder than getting into an Ivy League school. In reality, most of the selective academic programs in the country right now have admit rates that rival the Ivies. For example, UCLA's computer science admitted fewer than 3% of its applicants. UT Austin's School of Business, McComb's School of Business, admitted fewer than 10% of its applicants. And if you were an out-of-stater, your admit was even lower. So admissions officers are looking at each application through this lens of what we call fit to major, okay? Many top schools filled over half their freshman class through early decision plans. And I've mentioned this before, but it's almost impossible to get admitted to school like Tulane if you don't apply through an early application. Almost no one gets admitted at Tulane through regular decision. Vanderbilt admitted 61% of its incoming class through early decision. Northeastern intends to fill more than half its class through ED this upcoming year. Submitting a strong SAT or ACT score gives students a measurable advantage, even at the test optional schools. I've been saying this for the last 4 years. Test optional really means test recommended. Not only have I seen the student with a strong test score, not only seen that increase their odds of being admitted, I've seen it improve their financial aid. And then lastly, I'll say it this way: personal narrative remains one of the most powerful ways to stand out, especially when grades and test scores look similar across all the applicants. Uh, think of it as your child's brand. This is the most clear way to communicate is through the Common App's personal statement and the activities list. Those are the sections where you really highlight the student's personal brand. But with the rise of AI, some colleges are questioning the authenticity of written responses. So as a result, there's speculation that video submissions or recorded interviews might become more common part of the process in the future. Bottom line, though, either way, students who can articulate their story clearly and genuinely across any medium will have a major advantage. Now, let's just talk real quick about the 4 types of college applications. You might be able to combine 2 of them and say maybe it's 3, but I'll say this. So, back in my day, because I'm old, college, we probably applied to colleges through what we'd call a college-specific application. I'm from the Midwest and born and raised in Iowa. So when I applied to school, granted it was on paper, I applied to the University of Iowa, and then I wrote a separate application to Iowa State University. Specific college application, right? Then you can have a university system application. Where I'm at, the UCs and the Cal States would be the most common ones. New York would have, let's say, the SUNY program, right? It's where it's a university of multiple campuses. So it's still one application for that university system, and you can apply to then multiple campuses at that same time. So similar to the college specific application, but it's now for the university system as a whole. Then there is what we call a coalition application. As you can see, it's not used by too many schools nowadays, about 150 schools. The intent is sort of like the Common App, and that's what we're going to focus on mostly today is the Common App. It's used by over 1,000 schools. Altogether, though, there are about 4,000 schools in the country. So you might be doing more than just one application. You might be doing a Common App, especially for me. I find a lot of my kids out here do a Common App and a UC app, or a Common App and a Cal State app. So just know there's more than just the Common App out there. As far as the Common App in of itself, you can read the bullet points here, but I always say the analogy I like to use is think of it as it's sort of like a dating app for college admissions. Your child's going to build a profile. They're going to fill out their stats, things they like to do, and tell their personal story, right? And then they're going to try to match with multiple colleges. And admittedly, those colleges are going to want to know more information. So every college is going to get the same base profile, but some colleges might even ask extra questions just to see if you're really their type. So again, you're using one application, the Common App, to cast a wide net into this ocean. And basically, if you haven't already, now I'll be honest, out of curiosity, has anyone tried to log into the Common App in the last 2 days? If you have, you probably notice a big error message saying it's down, it's being being worked on, et cetera, et cetera. I checked earlier today and I still get that down message. And then we checked, I think Matt and I checked 5 minutes before we started the webinar, and I got in. So it presumably is up again. But if you haven't been to it yet, just go to Common App, Google Common App, but otherwise it's common.app.org. And then we're going to probably, if you haven't done it yet, you'll create an account. And let me just show you what that probably looks like. So this is what the landing page should look like, and you'll see if you have an account, you'll click the white button that says sign in. Otherwise, next to it, you'll see a black button that says create an account. Okay. But that's what it should look like. And once you get in, this is kind of the new look, if you will, of the Common App. Functionally very similar to past years. If anyone's maybe has an older child that's done this, they just kind of inverted the columns. What used to be on the horizontal and what used to be on the vertical axis, the X and Y axis, they kind of inverted them. Functions basically the same. They put a little different color scheme on it, but again, it functions basically the same. So once you get logged in or create an account, you should land here on a dashboard, and you're basically able to see the progress that you make as you fill out the core parts of the application. And you'll see like profile to family to education. And as you go through, it'll show the progress, and like the little check mark says like, hey, I got that completely filled out, right? So you can check your progress, and you'll even see like your college list down there, like, well, how many of you submitted, how many more are still in the to-do list, if you will. So I like this new dashboard, to be perfectly honest. But let's just kind of give you an idea what it's going to look like as you go in. I won't spend a ton of time on this because it's frankly, I think you can figure out the basic demographics fairly easily. But I'll just say that some common things I see when you're filling out the name, when the student fills out their name, you use their legal name. So like my niece, her name is Penelope, but everyone calls her Penny. She would need to use the name Penelope. There's a spot where she can use a nickname, and say, I prefer to be called Penny. That's fine. But use the legal name, as it appears on your social security card. This is also true when you're going to later down the road create your financial aid applications. You want to just get in the habit of using your legal name. Okay. Also, when it asks for your email, you don't have to use the same email that you use to create the account. So oftentimes the students might have created their account with their high school email. That's fine. But when you're filling out the application and it asks, well, what email do you want to use? I would not use the high school email. Use an email one that you're going to check, one that's not getting bombarded with spam and TikTok videos, right? Maybe it's an email that the family can access or something, right? But because whatever email you put on the application, that's going to be the email that the colleges are going to communicate to. This is where they're going to say, hey, you've been admitted, or when it comes to financial aid, hey, you need to upload more information or something like that. So it needs to be an email that is being checked is the main thing, and is not going to get lost. Okay. So, and like I said, it does not need to match the email you use to create the account. I'm going to go through some of these screens real quick, just so you can see kind of what they ask. They ask about the household. They'll ask about the student's schooling and all this kind of stuff about the test. You have the opportunity to self-report the test. And of course, some schools are still going to say, send it through like the College Board or through ACT and all that stuff. This stuff's pretty straightforward and simple. I don't want to bore yourself with that. I want to talk a bit about strategy. Actually, before I let me pause. I will say this. If you haven't done those first, like, let's call it the basic demographic information. If you haven't done that already, I would tell your child, do that now. Get this stuff down now, especially now that the Common Apps is open again. Start filling in this basic demographic stuff now, because even if they're going to say, hey, I'm applying, maybe they're not even applying early. Maybe they're doing regular decision and the deadline's not until January, February. Okay, still fill out this basic background stuff now, so you're not rushing at the last minute going and maybe make a mistake. Just get it in now. Start this, get it in. Because also, as you start to add the colleges, you'll see, hey, maybe the colleges have supplemental information, and you can prepare for that. So start this stuff now. Okay. Now let's talk about activities. I do want to talk a little bit about how you can maybe strategically, if you plan strategically in a way, you can start to differentiate yourself between the rest of the crowd. And I'll just say this, I'll explain it this way. Front load, I recommend anyway, front loading the activities that would fit to the major that you're applying to. Or at least front load the activities that are in line with the theme of your personal brand, the story you're trying to tell about yourself, the characteristics or values the child's trying to share. Front load then the activities that complement that theme. In other words, I'm just trying to say the order matters. Okay. Also keep in mind the Common App provides you enough space to list up to 10 activities. Don't feel the need to fill in all 10 slots if you don't have 10 activities. I've seen applications where students started putting in random stuff because they thought they needed to fill in all 10 spots. You don't, okay? I'll say honestly, most of my kids that I've been mentoring for a few years, they might have 5 or 6 activities. And admittedly, that's probably because we focused on depth not breadth. Because that's what really is going to make an impact. But the idea is, don't feel the need to just put in unnecessary filler or fluff to try to fill in all 10 spots. It's not necessary. On the flip side, let's say you have more than 10 activities, and you got to think about, like, okay, again, prioritize what do we put in. I also say look for opportunities to consolidate items into one particular, like, slot, if you will. So an example I'll share is, if your child held multiple positions in one organization, well, then combine that into one activity. An example would be is if they served on student council for a couple of years. Okay, well, then I would say, when you put it as one activity, when you get to the title, the position, I would say something like, and it depends on the position, of course, but I would say something like, class president, put in parentheses, SR for senior year, comma, vice president, in parentheses, like JR for junior year, comma, whatever. Like, so one spot, you're just putting in the different titles. You're showing them what years they were, right? The point I'm just want to make is basically is utilize as much of the space you provided to include those descriptive details. And, again, with the Common App, the organization name, so like I was talking about, like student council, that the space you're given is 100 characters. So instead of just saying student council, add some description to it. So maybe it says, student council hyphen largest school organization, or abbreviated largest school org with 50 members. Okay. Another example I helped a student with is when I looked at their app, I reviewing it before they submitted, and they wrote, just simply for position, they wrote intern, and it was at a marketing company. So we changed that to say social media marketing intern, and in parentheses, SEO optimization. Again, be as descriptive as you can. Use those space. There's very few characters that you're allowed. So use them all to try to be as descriptive as possible. And take this principle even when it comes to the activity description. You have 150 characters. Make the most of it. Don't just summarize common duties of like, oh, this is what we did every day. Instead, try to quantify impact. An example, another student of mine a couple of years ago, he was really big into swimming. He had 4 activities written down, took 4 slots of swimming. We got condensed it down to 1 in the end. But the way he wrote the activity was just simply, I help run swim practices as well as plan fundraising and recruiting events. Okay. I see those kind of descriptions all the time. Vague, general, don't really tell me a whole lot. So again, quantify result, the impact, the achievement, quantify results. So what we changed it to was led 5 a.m. practices 3 times a week, organized 12 fundraisers totaling over 10K, recruited 18 new swimmers in 6 weeks through word of mouth referral campaign. Did you notice all the numbers I used? Again, quantify the impact. All right.
JP, real quick. First of all, I just want to let everybody know, great questions. Keep them coming, please. The ones that are more admissions specific, I'm going to leave those for JP. Anything that I feel like is a little bit beyond my pay grade there. So I'm not ignoring you, and he'll get to as many as he can. My kind of quick takeaway from this part, and I've learned this just over the last few years, just getting more admissions experts on our team, is that how and kind of in which order you list your activities really matters, right? I know, like Brian, who was read applications at BU, and Laura at Denison, they said, look, we read, 80, 100 of these a day anyways. We usually only look at the first 3 activities anyways, right? In kind of first glance here. So to distill it down, that's kind of the takeaway for me, is like, okay, I got to be really intentional. I'm not just going to slap up my 6, 8, 10 things here, right?
Yeah, that's why I say front load the ones that matter, that are fit the major or fit your personal brand, that are going to highlight whatever's going to serve you the best, right? Yep. And so anyways, but yeah, front loaded, because I mean, the public answer, college advisor, college counselors will say, was like, oh, we read the whole thing. And technically they do, but they'll read the first, like you said, three maybe more closely, and they kind of skim the last ones. So front load the important ones. All right. Enough said about, the activity section. I think you get my point on how to differentiate yourself. Let's move on here. Let's see. Come on. All right. All right. So personal essay. Chances are your child has already drafted their personal essay. Hopefully they have a draft by now. I just kind of give you context of timeline. Like I have my kids, they're supposed to be finalized by now. So check with your child and go, where are you in this process with writing your personal essay? But chances are they're writing it somewhere else, right? It's going to be saved maybe in a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word somewhere, whatever. I just want to point out that when they go to copy and paste the essay into this box of the Common App, I can't stress enough, I recommend double checking the format just to make sure it looks visually okay. I've seen it where sometimes the paragraphs are all squished together, like line by line, and it looks like it was one giant paragraph. I've seen it the opposite way where it's there's so much space between the paragraphs, like you can park a car between it, right? So just make sure it looks visually correct. Take the time to care. The other thing I'll say is I've seen it plenty of times where when I do a word count in Google or a word count in Microsoft Word, and it says like 650 words, which is, by the way, the max, or maybe it's even 649 words, and we're like, oh, good, we had a word to spare. We go to copy and paste into the Common App, in the box, like the last word might be cut off. The way the Common App counts words is different from Google or Microsoft. So just make sure the entire essay was successfully pasted into the box. Like again, double check, review this stuff. Just make sure it looks right. It's all there. I can't tell you, just take the time to care and present again visually that this looks right, because they're going to download this as a PDF. And if it just looks yucky, think of it as like, if anyone, I don't know if anyone who's listening, if anyone's ever worked in HR, ever had to review resumes, like just the visual presence of it makes a difference. Okay. And I'm just going to pull out of the Common App for a second and talk a little bit more about this personal essay. And I'll say, this is really the section where this is your child's chance, to answer that $64,000 question. Why me? I mean, up until now, the admissions officer will have read, the child's family background, seen what the courses they've taken, the grades, what schools, and all that kind of stuff, possibly the test scores if you're submitting. And then, they'll see what your child's been involved in outside of the classroom, based upon what they wrote in the activity section. But up to this point, the admissions officer really doesn't know your child's why. Why are you the way you are? Why does this matter to you? The personal essay is your child's opportunity to share their authentic story. Okay. And just to prove I'm not making this up, read it for yourselves what Yale's former dean of admissions says about the essay. As he says, it's completely control the voice. It makes a really valuable document for us when you're applying it to an institution with thousands of students who have the same general academic and testing credentials. Those things are only get you in the door. That meaning the academic and testing gets you in the door. The rest of the application is what separates you out. Okay. This is your chance. Be your authentic self. Don't try to fake it. Be your authentic self. Common question I get is like, well, which prompt? Like, which one's the best one to answer? There's no such thing. Read again what the admissions officer at Colorado College says. It doesn't basically matter which prompt you choose. In fact, if it did, then they wouldn't have, if you look at the prompts, they wouldn't give you the last one where it says basically write about anything. They wouldn't give you that option if it really mattered. So just your child should pick whatever one they feel they can write about the most confidently, or the one that they feel like they can connect to the most. Couple, again, you can read the do's and whatnot when it comes to an essay. I'll just say the most common advice I seem to give over and over is to tell your story. Meaning, if I'm talking to your son or daughter, tell your story, not someone else's. it's common for students to write about like how someone else influenced them, and they'll spend like 80% of the essay talking about how great that other person is. And I'm like, okay, I want to admit that person, not you. So instead, only spend 20% of your essay on that other person, or 20% on some event in your life. Spend 80% talking about what you've learned, how you've implemented what you learned into your life. Basically, how have you grown from that experience? Okay. This is the time to tell colleges who you are, how you're going to show up onto their campus, and how you're going to contribute to their campus community. Also, I tell my students, not to speak in generalities. Instead, provide specific examples and do it in a way that creates that, that vivid impression on the reader. Okay. Enough about this. Let's move back to the Common App slides. So technically, at this point, I'll say you don't have to fill in all the sections of the Common App, like before adding to any of the colleges. Again, I had my kids start the background stuff a few months ago. And they left it, they saved it and left it. Now they're coming back in, and especially tomorrow, they're going to come in and we'll see what the new supplemental questions are. Actually, we can do it tonight, I guess, but we're going to come in and see what the new supplemental questions are for any of their colleges. But so you can like do some sections, save it, go to a different section, save it. So, but anyway, work on what you can work on. Again, the background stuff, get that stuff done now. The activities list, if have a good draft, hopefully by now. Personal essay, have a good draft, preferably by now. Put in the finishing touches over the next month or so, or sooner, because again, technically you could apply to schools tomorrow. But anyway, so like at some point you do have to add the school. So you're just going to go, you'll see it kind of highlighted here. You'll go to the college search, start typing the name of the school. When you add them with the little add button here, it'll then show up under the My Colleges link. And so just to kind of give you an idea what it looks like, when you go to when you add it, like in this case, a handful of schools, you'll see the schools listed here on the side. And then you can click on the more details to see more details of the school. So you see what's kind of unique about them. So I'm just going to highlight one of them here. So this is Whittier College, for example, out by me, kind of. And things it shows you. One, the deadlines, like, are you applying early action? Well, here's the deadline. Or otherwise, here's the final deadline for rolling admissions. Or if you're applying for spring, here's the deadline, right? Important links, college website and financial aid website, that's kind of important to me. And then they might have any other specific details. Now, this one in particular talks about they have the student could be admitted directly, a direct admit offer. Okay, cool. Let's go on to like any of the general information or academics. So these are like some of the supplemental questions that will show up on a school. Common thing. When are you going to start? So you put, let's say fall 2026. Are you going to live on campus or off campus, or something like that, or at home? Now, depending on the school, there might be other questions like, if they have an honors program, they might say like, do you want to apply to the honors? Sometimes, some schools will have, depending on the, like what major do you want to apply to. Basically, the point I want to make is think of this as an interactive form. Depending how you answer a question, it might trigger more questions. And sometimes you might, depending on how you answer it, you might not have any extra questions. So I think it's, it just depends on each school. But again, you only know when you start diving into the program. So sometimes, like I said, if the school has honors and you say, yes, I want to apply honors, it might trigger a supplemental question about like, well, why do you want to apply to honors, or what makes you stand out? Or a common one would be like just certain programs. Like I have a student who wants to get into drama, like an art school or something. They'll have like a thing saying, okay, well, submit your portfolio, right? So again, just think of this as interactive form. The questions might change. And this is where you want to find out exactly what those supplemental questions are. Ultimately, then, when you get to the end, you review, and then you're going to submit your application to that specific school. So you're not submitting one application to, like, let's say 5 schools at once. You're technically picking one school at a time and submitting one school at a time. And then after you submit, like in this case, let's say we submit to Whittier, that application is frozen. What got sent to Whittier is locked and frozen. It's now basically an Adobe PDF. That's what Whittier is going to see. After that, the student could change the application. They might want to customize something for like the University of Iowa. Maybe they want to change their personal essay somehow. I don't necessarily recommend doing this, but they have the ability to customize or change the application and submit maybe a slightly different version of the application to a different school, or they're going to just decide to keep it all the same and submit it, to all the schools the exact same way. But the idea here is you do have the ability to customize the application for a school if you want to, and it won't impact the other schools. They only see the version that you sent them. And then I think the final thing I just want to mention is deadlines. Uh, this is so important with financial aid and admissions. There's deadlines for admissions, like it could be early decision, early action, regular, rolling. If you want to apply for scholarships, they might have a deadline. Just with admissions, you could have 5 different deadlines, like honors colleges and such. And then you got financial aid deadlines. They're going to be different. This is where this gets overwhelming and potentially like, oh my God, what are we, so I'm just going to say, keep like a spreadsheet, keep all the important deadlines for every single school written down. Deadlines are critical. Don't miss a deadline. Okay. All right. That's the long and short of what I wanted to share. I'll hand it over to Matt, and he can talk about good old financial aid.
Yeah, nice job, homie. And plenty of questions in there for you, JP. And a lot of these, I think the answer is going to be, guys. And I wasn't being lazy with this answer because it's the truth. It's everything is school specific, right? So questions
Very
like,
true.
should I send my SATs here? Should I send them there? And usually the answer is it depends, right? And for most of, like JP will tell you, for most of his students, if they apply to 10 schools, they're going to send them to 6 and they're not going to send them to 4, right? It's
Yep.
very rare they get sent everywhere or nowhere, right? And in order for JP to make an assessment there, obviously he's going to see, okay, what are the scores? Okay, what's the school? Now let me look at the rest of your resume. Now let me look at what your major is. All of those variables are going to dictate what the right strategy is, right? So anyways, just keep that in mind, and because it's going to be similar with the financial aid questions, right? So okay, I'm putting a link in the chat right now, guys. If you haven't done it already, the first thing that I want you to do, um and it's almost like if you do one thing tonight, it's let it be this. We'll go in here in a second, and I see most of you have already done this, which is great. But set up at least your free account, okay? If you want to upgrade to all the bells and whistles, it's $5, 4.99 technically. But this is going to answer all the questions you have with financial aid and scholarships, specifically for your family. I got some questions like, is Northeastern good with financial aid? Is how much would Vanderbilt give, right? It's all in here. We're going to tell you exactly how much colleges are going to give you, and I'll go in here in just a minute so we can get granular. But before I do, I just want to give kind of some high level information. So set up your account first of all. Do that now. But what is financial aid, right? In its most meta kind of how I'd articulate it in its most meta term is it's anytime we're not paying full sticker price at a college, anytime we're getting some type of discount, we're getting some form of financial aid. And there's 3 broad buckets: need-based grants. This is financial aid that's given based on my family's financial situation. What type of household income, what type of savings do we have, and then how generous or not are these particular colleges in meeting need-based financial aid. Now, I think what's really surprising to people is that when you apply to 10 colleges, and let's say, God willing, you get accepted to all 10, you sent them all the exact same information, and they came back and you have 10 very different offers. That's because they're all, you got to think of colleges like their own businesses, right? They are individual businesses and they run their businesses differently. The second bucket, the second type of financial aid, merit-based scholarships. So these are kind of what we think of traditional scholarships. This is when a college says, look, I don't care how much your parents make. I want you to come to my school. So I'm going to give you a financial incentive to come here, right? Now, a lot of people hear this and they say, well, my kid's in the middle of the pack and they don't test well and they don't have this extraordinary resume. They're not going to be eligible for scholarships. Wrong. I'll give you hundreds of schools that will give that kid that I just described very meaningful scholarships. It's just figuring out, well, which ones are a good fit for us that fall into that bucket, right? The last type of financial aid I'm less concerned about: self-help financial aid. That's a sexy term for loans. Okay. Now, you heard me say every college is different because they are. So anytime there's a universal rule in this process, we want to be really comfortable with what that is. And this is kind of one nice thing about how need-based financial aid works, right? So nothing to do with our academic credentials, everything to do with our family's financial situation. Every college uses this basic formula to start to figure out who's eligible for financial aid and how much. And that is the cost of attendance. So that's these colleges' sticker price. Now, you lucky class of 2026 families will be the second class that will have over a dozen, it's probably going to be dozens by the time your kids are going off to school, dozens of schools that charge over 100K a year, right? So $100,000, for example, Columbia University, minus your student aid index or EFC. Now, what this means is every single student, and this is the first thing, there's no reason you shouldn't know what this is tonight. Okay. You should know. That's again one thing you should know right now. What's your student's student aid index, right? What's your foundation for your financial aid eligibility? So if the formula determines that your eligibility for your student aid index is 50,000 and Columbia comes in at 100K, now we are potentially, that's the key word here, potentially eligible for $50,000 worth of need-based financial aid. Well, am I going to have to pay that? Is Columbia going to pay that? It all depends on the college. Now, Columbia, as an example, is one of these schools that they meet 100% of need, which means you pay 50K, they're going to take care of the difference. Pepperdine's almost 100K, but guess what? They don't meet 100% of need. So you're going to pay $50,000 plus an additional amount if you want to go to Pepperdine, right? So that's where, again, these expensive, prestigious schools, but how generous or not they are, depends on again their business model and your family situation. A couple things to talk about. The biggest drivers for the student aid index, your income and your assets. Income is a little bit more straightforward because it is what it is, right? Whatever it says on our tax returns, that's the deal. What I do want to point out, if you're a class of 2026 family, they're looking at what's called your prior tax year. So 2024 tax returns is what's going to drive your SAI for your student's freshman year. And then for your student's sophomore year, they're going to be looking at your 25 returns, junior year, 26, so on and so forth. Okay. Some of you might be going, oh my goodness, we had the best year of our lives in 2024, but that was an anomaly and we haven't done it before. We're not going to do it since. Are we going to get punished? Maybe, but it shouldn't happen. Know why? Because this is, and I'm only going to tease this concept tonight. You're always going to appeal, aka negotiate, if you don't get a good deal, right? If you don't get an appropriate deal from your school, and this would be a great example, a piece of ammunition you would use to appeal for more money, get more from that school. Assets. This is interesting because we have more control over some things here, right? Now, what's considered an asset? Short answer, everything. Right? Short answer is everything's considered an asset, but, and this is a huge but, guys, nothing in retirement. So if you've been great savers and you've been fortunate enough to save money in 401ks, IRAs, etc., you will not be quote unquote punished for that. Okay? So don't make the critical mistake that so many freaking families make, and I don't blame them because it's easy to make it. They put their retirement accounts on the FAFSA and disqualify themselves from getting any financial aid when that should not be the case. Okay? Couple other things I want to drill down on when it comes to assets. Generally speaking, and there's not a lot of exceptions, colleges put way more emphasis on any money in the student's name than they do the parent's name. Right? I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but basically, if they have there's 100K in the student's name and 100K in the parent's name, they're going to look at anywhere from 20 to 30,000. Okay, count that against you if it's in the student's name, or it's going to be more like 5 or 6,000, right? If it's in the parent's name. Okay, so a gigantic swing. Okay, and again, obviously there's variations from one school to the next, but do not make, and listen to me, guys. If you have a 529 plan, and if that you have no idea what that means, you can zone out for a second here. But if you have a 529 plan, that is your money as the parent. So do not report it as the student asset. Number one, it's incorrect. Number two, it's going to kill your financial aid eligibility. So, these are the things, these easy mistakes to make can really add up. So remember, if you have a 529, you as the parent are the owner, the student is the beneficiary. And there's a lot of things we can do to get creative with how 529s are presented, especially with some of the new FAFSA changes. Real estate. Okay, I'm going to start with if you're fortunate enough to own property that's not your primary residence, you got a vacation home, you have an investment property, all colleges are going to consider that real estate fair game. So we need to get creative how we present it in terms of the value, in terms of the debt. Can we structure it as a business, right? But all colleges will look at that. Your primary residence, again, don't make this mistake of putting the equity in your primary residence on the FAFSA, right? They are not, it appears as if they're asking you to do that. So I understand why a lot of people make this mistake. Do not include your primary residence on the FAFSA. However, just about every college that requires the CSS profile considers your home equity to be fair game, right? So, we've mentioned some of these colleges: Boston University, Boston College, Northwestern, right? Yeah, University of Southern California, JP's old stopping grounds. Tulane was one we mentioned. NYU, right? So all these types of colleges consider your home equity fair game. I shouldn't say all because there's exceptions, but we want to make sure we know who considers our home equity fair game, and B, we want to make sure we know how do we present that in such a way that it doesn't freaking kill us, right? From a need-based financial aid standpoint. Okay. Um, what if I don't qualify for financial aid? A percentage of you, there's no magic. JP and I are pretty stinking good at what we do. But for some of you, there's not going to be any magic wand we can wave that's going to make you eligible for traditional need based financial aid. Now, there's some that you're still entitled to. So we're still going to tell you to complete your FAFSA and CSS profile. But you're not going to get that traditional need based financial aid. Couple things I want to talk about. Number one, we're going to show you where and how to get discounts and which colleges will give your kids discounts and so much. But a couple other things. Number one, a lot of these colleges will still require financial aid applications if you want to be considered, even for merit-based scholarships. We picked NYU, the fifth most popular school in the world last year. They offer merit-based scholarships, but even if you want to be considered for them, regardless of your financial situation, got to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Not all colleges give scholarships right now. And this is relatively new within the last couple of decades, right? um so there's not one kid on an Ivy League campus that's there on a scholarship, right? There's not one kid at Middlebury or Tufts or Amherst or Williams that's there on a scholarship. They do not exist, and there's about 100 colleges in the country, right, MIT, that fit into this category. So we want to know that beforehand. Okay. And we got to apply to competing colleges, guys. You heard me say before, they're businesses, big businesses. They will compete with one another for their products. What are their products? The students, right? So if we're all in on Tulane, we're going to tell you, guess what? We want you applying to University of Miami because they compete for the same students. You didn't like Boston University, but you really like Northeastern. Too bad. I'm going to make you apply to Boston University because it's going to help us get a better deal from Northeastern and vice versa, of course. So this is especially important if we're not eligible for need-based financial aid. So what I want to do, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second here, and then we'll pick it right back up because I think this is the easiest way to coach this, guys, is to look at an actual example. So again, if you haven't set up your account, and I'm going to put it in the chat right now, okay, or re-put it in the chat. This is if you take one action step tonight, let it be this: set up your account, guys, because guess what? You don't have any excuse not to know what your student aid index is. You don't have any excuse not to know which schools are going to be affordable for your family. And guess what? That has nothing to do with the sticker price in most cases. Now, to further confuse you, there's actually two types of SAIs. Most colleges use the federal methodology, right? Just require the FAFSA. That means that they don't look at home equity. That means that if you're divorced or separated, they only look at one household. It's important to know which household that they should look at. Institutional methodology, most of them are looking at home equity, but there's exceptions like University of Chicago. Okay, is not going to look at your home equity, and neither is Vanderbilt, for example. If you're divorced or separated, most of these colleges are going to look at both households. Okay, but again, there's so I might have just misspoke. Did I say Vanderbilt, JP? Are you paying attention? I know you're banging away in questions. probably. But Vanderbilt was my example of, they use the institutional methodology. They look at your home equity, but a really interesting thing about them is that if you're divorced or separated, they only look at one household. So sometimes you can be in this scenario where you get this unbelievable deal, ton of financial aid, and you probably even shouldn't, right? Based on your family situation. So all that's to say, all these colleges are different, okay? And we always want you thinking about what your SAIs, we want those front and center. We want you always thinking about your budget, and this is something that obviously you can tweak within your platform. We'll always be telling you about upcoming events and important content here, and you'll always see the list on the right side of your screen. And by the way, guys, it's $5 to upgrade. So, and we're not going to be $5 forever. I promise you that. But I'll do something right now in the chat. Throw out an actual college. Do me a favor and throw out an actual college in the chat here. Throw out your top choice or throw out, your alma mater. Okay, so let's look at New York University. We talked about them a lot tonight, right? So any college that we put in here. Oh, sorry guys. Let me just reset this bad boy. Sorry about that. Okay, so NYU. Let's look at them. Okay. Yeah, pretty stinking expensive. 95,000 right now. This family's going to pay 61,000, okay? And all we care about, guys, is your net cost. I don't care about 95,000. I care about the 61. Still pretty stinking expensive, but that's the relevant number. If I want to put it on my list, fine. But for any college in the country, right, that I want to put up here, I can do a deep dive, okay? And the deep dive is going to show us, really anything and everything that we think is really pertinent about the school, starting with the admissions information. So we got a lot of questions earlier. Should I send my SAT? Should I not? Or what's a good SAT score is a question we get a lot. What's a good GPA? And what were my questions to all of them? It depends on the school. So you see the average GPA at NYU, the average test scores at NYU, unbelievably competitive, right? We don't put a lot of stock in the rankings. As a matter of fact, we don't like them at all as a company, but we get too much questions, so we have reluctantly agreed to put them in here. And you see the acceptance rate, right? The financials, how generous are they with need-based financial aid? How generous are they with merit, right? It's really hard to get merit at NYU, but if you get it, $25,000 on average. But this is all that matters, guys. What are you going to pay to go there? Right? What type of discount are you going to get over the course of 4 years? For every college in the country, we have every single scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each, and we're going to project how much is your kid going to get, right? Or how much are you going to get there? And then ultimately, can you afford it, right? So this gives you some really in-depth information to say, okay, here's the 4-year sticker price of this college. This is what I'm going to pay after financial aid. This is my family's budget. So somebody would have to borrow this amount. How do we feel about that outcome versus our major versus the average starting salary? So we're trying to give you a really good look at what your ROI is going to be at any college. And let me just put a couple others in here. I don't know. Washington and Lee is one I saw here. Okay, and again, one of these schools, like, oh my goodness, pretty stinking expensive. Very good with need-based financial aid. So we're gonna go there for a half price-ish. Okay. But guys, here's the real kind of power of the tool as you guys are finalizing your list of schools, and we talk about things like, well, how do I find out what schools are going to be good from an admission standpoint, but also be really affordable for my family? This is how you do it. So you can say, and we have dozens of filters in here, as you guys, a lot of you guys are playing with already. But as you'll see, if you haven't set up your account, so you can say, look, I want to go to a 4-year school. I prefer a smaller school setting. I want it to be, relatively close to home, and I want to major in um, business. Okay, and again, we can put any number of things in there, but when I go do that, I can say, well, just do that. But then, I want you to order them based on who's going to give me the most in merit based scholarships, right? And maybe Wheaton wasn't on our list of schools, but they're going to throw a ton of money at us, even though we're not eligible for need based financial aid. Or maybe we are eligible for need based financial aid, and we can just say, okay, um okay, here's some schools that are checking all my admissions boxes, and I do a really good job. with need-based financial aid, right? And then this is just kind of another way to heat map to look at which colleges we're considering here, right? And then we can take a deep dive at any of these schools or add them to our working list. And this is again another way to look at, our affordability of our list, right? We don't want too many schools here that are highly selective and in the, hey, be cautious territory. Um, and when it comes time for financial aid forms, we're going to guide you through that line by line instructions, all of your due dates in here. And I won't get too far into the weeds with the rest of the tool, guys, but don't overthink it. It's $5, right? It's $5 if you can't afford it. If you can't afford the $5, write into us, support at collegeaidpro.com, and just say you can't afford it. We'll get you on there. If you're a free and reduced lunch family, you automatically will automatically get you on there. No problem. And otherwise, at a minimum, just stay on the free version of the tool. But you can only put 3 schools in there, not an unlimited amount. You don't have the ability to use those filters like I just shared with you. And then you don't have access to our member resources. Um, every other Monday, we have office hours. So there'll be a panel of us experts that just show up to answer your questions 7 Eastern time every Monday. Every other Thursday, member only workshops where we talk about more inside baseball stuff. And then there's a community forum that's moderated by our experts, right? That's all included in that $5 a month as well. And again, you can cancel at any time. Um, so here's what I want to quickly talk about kind of next, and what I really want you set up your account tonight. But the other no-brainer thing I really want you to do tonight, and I'm putting this in the chat right now, book some time, and we try to take care of folks that stay on live with us. Um, and thank you, Greg, for those nice words on the tool. Appreciate that. But we try to take care of our folks that show up live with us. What we're going to do, if you book tonight, you're going to get a free scholarship and financial aid assessment, right? So you'll meet with one of us, and just you just got to pick a time. You got to book tonight and pick any time between now and August 8th. But we'll get together. We'll both go in the platform together to make sure that we're seeing what you're seeing. We'll gut check it. Okay, what schools is this right? Is this school's going to cost me this amount? What if my test scores went up? Should I submit them here? Right? And we'll get a good feel of, can we help you further? Can we help you beyond this? Because for a percentage of you, and this will not be all of you, you're going to be good fits for what we call our "Wake Me Up When It's Over" service, right? Where there's kind of 3 different ways that we do this, right? If you just want us to help you with financial aid, if you just want us to help you with admissions, or both, right? So that means, if you hire us just for the financial aid part, we do all the financial aid applications for you. We worry about who needs what, where, when, how. We worry about how to report your business, how to report your home equity, who's considering that stuff. We appeals negotiate with the colleges to get a better deal. We tell you which colleges are competing with one another. We show you how to pay the bill. So, that is, some of the things we do to on average, right? We save all our families. We know we're going to save you at a minimum 10 grand, full stop. That we can guarantee. Most families fall
That's
somewhere.
conservative.
I know, but that's what that we can stand tall on. But most families, we save between 50K and 100K, our average, and we have to update this because it's a lot higher since we got done with the class 2025. So this does not include class 2025, but it's going up considerably. But on average, that's kind of the ROI that we deliver here, right? And you're working with somebody unlimited amounts through the entire process, getting your hand held, hence the "Wake Me Up When It's Over." And then we have something in partnership with the Princeton Review for admissions, right? So if you're just looking with admissions help, this is, we can do that with you as well with our partnership with the Princeton Review. And then, of course, there's families that say, hey, I need both, brother. And I look at it as, if you are, if you're a family that says, hey, we just need help with the financial aid stuff, that's kind of like we're grabbing the wheel for mom, dad, both, whatever, right? Parent or parents, right? If you need help with the admission stuff, we're kind of grabbing the wheel with the student. And then obviously there's folks that like, hey, I want help with both. But we're doing a promotion where, if you, because we're just about closed, so to speak, for the class 2026. Class 2027, you guys have more time. Um, uh, that said, JP will disagree with me on the admissions front, and he'd probably be right. But in terms of being closed, we have more availability there. And we're doing a promotion where if you do any of this stuff, you get $500 off. But again, at a minimum, book your meeting, even if you know you're not going to work with us and wake me up when it's over capacity. Book your meeting because we can at least tell you, well, where do you go from here? Because maybe it makes sense to just book an hour with us. Um, if you're a student, I saw a bunch of kids on here. I think if you're a student, your parents got to be on that call too. So just flag that if they're not on there with you tonight. Sign up for it, but just make sure you wrangle them in and pick a time that works for them. And again, the link in here allows you to sign up for your consult, get the specifics that I kind of showed you quickly. And if you know you DIYers know who you are, okay, right? And we're not going to change you. We don't need to change you. We don't want to change you, right? But at least sign up for the platform, right? Invest the $5. We're not going to be $5 for much longer. Again, it's $4.99 a month. Cancel whenever you want, but at least take advantage of all the great things that are on there for these huge decisions here. And yeah, we're getting a lot of questions of where to sign up for the consult. You can do it right through this page. I will put it here, or right through this page. If I say schedule here, this will also ultimately take you to the same place. And then if you're someone that just knows, look at, I want to sign up for this. I just want to sign up for the package because I know I'm going to want, one or both of these or whatever, and I don't want them to close for the season. I'm putting this link in here uh, as well. Okay. And you could sign up tonight and talk to us tomorrow. And if you decide, I got out over my skis, we'll give you. I don't want to do this. We'll refund you. But do the right thing. If you're thinking about it, do it. So I know we covered a lot tonight in a relatively short period of time. That's always our struggle, right? We want to give a ton of information without being like too much. But it's we know kind of where people should be right now, right? And JP told you on the admissions front, we gotta have that essay like close to the finish line. We gotta be solidifying that college list. If we feel like we're way up, away from that, believe me, you're not alone. It's totally fine. But now is the time. From a financial standpoint, I have to know what every single one of these schools are going to cost me before I even apply. Because the worst part of our jobs are when everybody or when somebody gets into their dream school and then the parents and family find out this we cannot afford this, right?
Can I piggyback on that? Just something we talked about as a group, right? With the change in the Parent Plus loan starting next year, like families, like I had to have a real hard come to Jesus talk with some of my families because their plan to pay for college was, the Parent Plus loan. The government's going to give me the Parent Plus loan no matter what for everything. Not next year, starting next year, that's over. So you have to have a solid, rock solid plan on knowing what you can afford. The worst thing you can do, and as someone who worked in financial aid at USC years ago, I've seen this happen where they start at a 4-year school, like the dream school, maybe sometime during the sophomore year, sometime during the junior year, no longer have the funds and you have to drop out. Now your kid is a dropout and has all that debt. That's the worst. So you need to know. I can't stress that enough. And that's what we do. We help you with that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of these. Obviously, we're biased here, right? We want people to hire us. It's good for business, but there's a lot at stake here, right? And this is a massive investment, and it's like your kids have worked their freaking butts off to build. I think I'm stealing this from you, JP, but it just resonated. Like they've built the house, right? But in how competitive this environment is now, it's almost like somehow that's almost not good enough anymore. It's how you stage the house. It's how it shows up online, right? It's how you market it, right? And that's where we want to help you on the admission side, is to make sure just everything is they're getting showcased the way that they've kind of earned or whatever. And there's a strategy and it's the same thing on the financial side. Yes, your financial situation is what it is, but that's why you have a great CPA, so you maximize your deductions, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So anyways, thank you so much. Really engaged crowd tonight, which we always love, right? JP keeps us on our toes, and we know you guys care, and you're showing up in the dead of summer, late afternoon or in the evening here on the East Coast because because you're crazy about your kids. So we can get behind that. So appreciate you guys, and yeah, make sure don't overthink. At least sign up for the consult tonight, guys. Don't overthink that one, and then pay the $5 and kick the tires on the platform, and we're excited to help you. We love this. So JP, appreciate you, brother.
Of course. Have a good one, all.